Coming up on today's episode of Inside Man United, the headlines. Newcastle speed up Dan Ashworth exit to Man United as Paul Mitchell now heads up their list of replacement targets. Ratcliffe says yes and gives green light to £60 million deal as second source confirms United's pursuit of Michael Olise. PSG also preparing a £75 million offer to sign Marcus Rashford. And Fabrizio Romano reveals truth about Mount to Arsenal rumours and a loan move for Antony. And finally, Man United set for private talks with Real Madrid as £43 million transfer target emerges. All that coming up. Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining me. And I was away for a little bit, so I had a couple of episodes pre-recorded while I was away in Rome. And I hope you enjoyed them. It was a series. If you missed them, go and check them out in the content library. It was just me doing a full squad review, looking at defence, who we'd keep, who we'd get rid of, and who we'd buy to replace those departing, and did it for the defence, midfield and the forward line. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, give them a look, see what you think. I've already got a few comments from people thinking I'm off my head, thinking that Ollie Watkins could even consider moving to United, that Rashford needs to be given more time. Sancho just hasn't been given a proper opportunity to play with Rasmus Højlund. And lots of opinions on those videos, but I love them. That's why we like this game. And if people have differing opinions, let it be known. So always get involved in the comment section, whether you're supporting me or destroying me. More than happy to hear from people and hear people's feedback. Without further ado, let's get into the news. So first up, we have The Telegraph, and they are running a story on Newcastle now kind of not wanting to play silly buggers with United with Dan Ashworth, of course. You may know that once he left for United, he's been put on gardening leave, with Newcastle essentially holding Ashworth and United by the collective balls because, he broke contract and he should be on gardening leave because he can't work for a competitor. And if he does, they want 20 million from United, which clearly United are not going to pay. And it seems that Newcastle were kind of happy to dig their heels in and, play hardball on this one. But there seems to be a little bit of a power vacuum going on in Dan Ashworth's absence. And they also do want to get someone in place in preparation for the summer transfer business. And by all accounts, they're quite disappointed with their performance this season compared to last season. They're kind of languishing in mid-table now. Not quite the Newcastle of last year, and I think Mr. Eddie Howe is probably going to lose his job, and I think there's going to be a massive restructuring of the squad in the summer, and I think they want to get their ducks in a row. So I think they want to get this Ashworth business behind them so they can start moving forward, as opposed to, swirling the drain in the present of something that they can't really help anymore. So it's a case of, do you want to cut your nose off to spite your face and just dig your heels in over this Ashworth thing? Or do you want to, take care of your own business, or are you too busy trying to stifle your competitors? And while it's nice to be able to do both, the priority should be to grow your own business instead of trying to fuck someone else's up. So it goes on to say here, they're speeding up the Ashworth deal with United because they want to go for Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell obviously being one of the lead candidates for United when they were looking to fill this position, with him having a very good pedigree. His last job was at AS Monaco, and he was no doubt under consideration by United, but it looks like Newcastle are going to take him instead, and it'll be a good replacement. So it says here, Newcastle want to speed up the Dan Ashworth exit as Paul Mitchell heads up a short list of candidates to replace him. The compensation over Ashworth remains a top priority, and Telegraph Sport understands. Newcastle Chief Executive Darren Eales has taken a lead role in those negotiations, which are believed to have been, fairly amicable, despite the nature of, Newcastle now considering themselves a competitor to United, which for all intents and purposes, I'm ashamed to say, is probably correct given the trajectory of the two clubs at the moment. And there's kind of a cross section of, as one is in the ascendancy, one is still kind of probably in the descendancy. at this stage. But the former Southampton and Tottenham head of recruitment, Mitchell, whose last job was at Monaco, features prominently in their discussion. So Newcastle have asked recruitment firm Odgers Berndtson to act as an intermediary, having started reaching out to potential candidates, obviously with Mitchell being one of them. He's thought to be keen on a return to England and would not have the same lengthy period of gardening leave as they would be employing someone from a Premier League rival. So their head of recruitment, Steve Nixon, who apparently is making a little bit of a run to try and become the head negotiator, or sorry, the head of recruitment. I think they want him to stick to scouting a little bit more. He's been pushing himself forward internally to take on a wider role in the aftermath of Ashworth's absence, but they just wanted him to focus on scouting players, and he currently shares control of the scouting department and player analysis with Andy Howe, nephew of manager Eddie. So yeah, they still want a large compensation fee for Ashworth, but 20 million. I mean, you know, it's like any sort of negotiation. Go stupid high, they go stupid low, and then you just kind of inch your way towards common ground and eventually get it done. So yeah, although the Newcastle hierarchy are extremely reluctant to let Ashworth end his gardening leave, they would consider a deal that will see him begin his new role at Old Trafford before the end of the year. You know, it's going to suit them just to get it done and dusted. They are paying Ashworth's because he's not allowed work for a rival. It's my understanding that Newcastle actually have to continue paying him his salary unless they want to just let him go somewhere else. So they're actually having to pay him. And if they brought in someone else as well, they're paying two people for the same job just to piss United off. I think it's just a case of they just want to get on with stuff. So the loss of Ashworth has left a power vacuum at the top of the club, and the board, although capable of handling the forthcoming transfer window in the same way they did before Ashworth arrived, recognise it would be better to fill it sooner rather than later with a pivotal summer ahead, which it certainly is for both clubs. So yeah, that's it. It looks like progress will be made sooner rather than later with Newcastle, Ashworth and Paul Mitchell now back in the mix to join them. So hopefully all parties can agree an amicable way forward, and it looks like we will. So on to team talk here with James Marshment, and it says that this is kind of old news being recycled, but there is a second source in the mix confirming United's interest in Olise, and it looks like Olise does want to move to United. There is obviously rumours of Neto being in the mix as well for United, but it looks like that signing is off the table. So it goes on to say, United plans to sign Olise have been clarified by a second source who have provided more details on the proposed capture of the Palace star. So yeah, finalising his 27.7 purchase, yada yada, the same regurgitated details at the top of every article that features Jim Ratcliffe. So key appointments being made. To that end, the club, while having to pay close attention to finances, are looking to make up to 4 marquee signings. Of course, United are going to be getting rid of a huge amount of players. Of course, with Greenwood potentially leaving for around 50 million, that's going to be pure profit FFP. Marcus Rashford, if he leaves, pure profit FFP. Then you're getting rid of the likes of Casemiro, Varane off the wage bill. You might even get transfer fees for Casemiro in the 20 to 30 million region if he does go to Saudi. And then getting those wages off the bill. Then the likes of Donny van de Beek, Jadon Sancho getting off the wage bill. You're probably going to pick up maybe about 40 to 50 million for him transfer wise. Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, Hannibal Mejbri, and all those other players that are out on loan. There is no reason for United not to have probably in the region of about 300 million to spend in this summer between departures and what would already be available. I think United that's why United have been so adamant in getting a lot of these loan players out, trying to get some value, getting Sancho out the door. And I've no doubt that a lot of movement is going to happen as soon as the final game of the season is over. I think you're going to see a huge amount of movement of players leaving United so they can get that money in place for their transfers. Now, they might want to do both at the same time, because if you get all your money in first, all the selling clubs know that you've got this fat stack of cash and they can kind of bend you over a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So to that end, the club, while having to pay close attention to their finances, want to make these 4 marquee signings. And apparently Ratcliffe is charging Ashworth with solidifying United's spine. And that is always the most important area, despite how important wide attacking players and fullbacks and all those players are. The spine is where it's at. New defender, midfielder, striker, top of the wish list. I think anyone with a brain would agree that is the order in which things should be done. Right-sided attacker, clearly Antony is going to be surplus to requirements. More on him later on. And Yeah, second source confirms that there is going to be a move for Olise from Man United. So Team Talk revealing Ratcliffe has given the green light for this move to go through. A second source in journalist Ben Jacobs has now revealed that INEOS have indeed approved a summer swoop for the France under-21 international. So yeah. United also looking at Pedro Neto, rated in the £65 million bracket. Jacobs, though, insists that it is one or the other for United, with not signing both. Well, I think that's a bit of an obvious statement, to be quite honest. Jacobs said, nothing is advanced with United and Neto. The only approved target so far is Olise. With Neto, you're looking at 65 to 70. That's not within United's capabilities if they do pursue Olise, obviously, given they need to focus on a striker and a centre-back. Now, remember, Mason Mount, ambidextrous, can play with both feet, so he can play on the left, but when he does, he inverts. If he can play on the right, he can stay out there. We've got Bruno Fernandes, Omari Forson. So we do have options out there. Mason Greenwood might come back. You just don't know. So we'll see what happens, but I think we only need one replacement there with Pellistri out the door. Sancho's going to be out the door. Antony, it's going to be hard to shift him, particularly with his off-the-field issues still remaining an issue. That's going to put off a lot of clubs taking him. And of course, I would imagine if he is taken out of the club, it will be for a loan move while that case, tries to find a conclusion. And then it just goes into doubts over the long-term futures of Varane and Casemiro, a story which has been done to death. So yeah, that's where we are with Olise. Neto doesn't look like he's on the radar, but yeah, confirmed that United do definitely want Olise, and that looks like the right side attacker we're going to be going for. So yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so on to the Daily Mirror here, and they are running their story on Rashford now being the primary target for PSG in preparation of them losing Mbappe to Real Madrid. So listen, this could be a good move. I don't think Rashford would be too keen on moving to France, but if the money's right, it's pure profit. And given how unconvincing Rashford has been, not only this season, but for, in my opinion, a majority of his United career. I know there's other fan channels that seem to defend him no matter what. Local lad. Fan channels I like and agree with for the most part. But listen, now's the time to sell him. We'll get a good price for him. And he still represents good value for another club. So they made a concerted effort to sign Rashford back in 2022 after he had an appalling season at United, and I wanted him sold then. Then he turns around and has that season last season. I was so happy to be proven wrong and was hoping he'd be able to kick on under a kind of a new regime, new manager, and really become and flower into the player that we all hoped he can be. But he's just gone back to type this season, and again, I just don't think this guy has the mental fortitude to maintain a very consistent high level career. And they did offer him 400 grand a week. So it keeps annoying me, this 30 goals last season. He got 17 in the league, by the way, and that's all that really matters. Okay, scoring against the fourth best team in the Icelandic League and the Europa League, and battering some clubs in the League Cup or the FA Cup. While nice, and you got to do it. The only contest that really matters is the Champions League and the Premier League. And with 17 goals, he was 6th in the Golden Boot last season, and that was his best ever return after 9 seasons at United, and he's on over 300 grand a week. So, I'm not too excited. But as we continue on, Rashford struggled to repeat those heroics this season, or for many other seasons, I might add, with just 7 goals from 34 appearances, which is an absolutely piss-poor return. So yeah, it looks like PSG are stepping up. They're going to have plenty of targets. Will Rashford want to go there? The player obviously has to agree to want to go somewhere as well, but it will be a good chance for him to get some silverware. He's going to, win the French league. Not that really matters, but PSG got the best years out of Neymar, Cavani, and Ibrahimovic, to be honest. So there could be something in it, and United will certainly be tempted. They value Rashford closer to 100 million. Be nice if they got it, and they should be able to get that. But if you got 80 million for Rashford, I'd snap your hand off, if I'm being perfectly honest. So yeah, it looks like there's a need from the player and the club. Despite Rashford underlining his commitment to United in that interview, which I thought was terribly weak. That means he's very paranoid. He's clearly listening and aware of the huge wave of criticism, and he's decided to come out in defiance and speak about his love and commitment to the club. This is off the back of him calling in sick for training because he was on the piss. So the math ain't mathing there, Marcus. He was also one of the players that it seemed put his hand up to be taken off to not continue in Ollie's last game, because you could see in his interview with the overlap on Sky, he asked if any players want to come off, happy for that to happen. And Marcus Rashford came off at halftime in that game. So that's kind of the strength of character you're dealing with there. So, yeah, they're also looking at Osimhen, so I'm sure PSG are going to be making a big stab at some of the players that they want to bring in over the summer. We move on to Football 365. Joe Williams running a bit of a report here on Fabrizio Romano having his 2 cents on a couple of different stories circling United squad. So we got Mason Mount and Antony here. Just kind of putting his 2 cents in on what he knows regarding the Mason Mount move to Man United and whether Arsenal and Liverpool were also interested. So Fabrizio Romano's address claims United winger Antony could move to Flamengo on loan. Flamengo, should I say? And just having his comments on reports that Mason Mount was close to joining Arsenal in the summer. And so it looks like United also involving a new left back in their plans. So Romano have been discussing summer plans at United, whether Antony will be allowed to leave on loan next season. In a column with Caught Offside, he goes, as previously reported, United are going to be exploring the market for left backs in the summer transfer window, and most likely will try to bring in a talented young player in that position. It's also an area Chelsea are expected to look into. They've got plenty of defenders, they just can't stay fit. There's no specific names to mention. I mean, Harry Amas, a young player coming through the United ranks, very, very highly thought of, but he's 16 years of age. I mean, he's still probably a good 4 or 5 years away from realistically staking a claim to the United first team. But as we've seen with Garnacho and Mainu, you can get in if you're young enough. But it's I usually find it's easier for more flair attacking players to get starts at a younger age, because you can afford to make mistakes in the parts of the pitch that they operate. You cannot afford and expose a young man to the defensive rigors of the Premiership with a lack of experience, because any mistakes there lead to goals. Any mistakes, in the more advanced parts of the pitch are not punished as much, and you can afford to have your players try things, express themselves, develop some bravery. Not really the same chances can be afforded in the defensive areas. That's something where you need a little bit more experience and ready-made for the rigors and tests that those positions will offer. Goes on to say, however, there's no specific names to mention in that left-back area, but I'm sure both clubs are looking at left-backs. Difficult to mention names at this stage. For United, it remains the case that bringing in a new sporting director and finalising the structure will be crucial to determining who they target, which, of course, is going to be happening with Dan Ashworth. Further reports about Antony's situation at United, that there's claims that he's going to go on loan to Brazil, to Flamengo. That's utter bullshit. There's no way he's going to be going back to Brazil with his tail between his legs. I think United will have difficulty shifting him, so I think a loan move somewhere will probably be most likely, in light of his off the field issues needing to be clarified and finalised. And who knows what's going to happen. I doubt any club is going to want to buy him, and it's going to be a huge weapon to beat United over the head with in any sort of a negotiation. So yet another fantastic situation in the right attacking winger saga that United have had to experience with Greenwood and Sancho as well. But going on to Mason Mount going to Arsenal, finally there was also an interesting story involving Mason Mount with manager Michael Arteta alleged to have told Confidence that they were very close to signing him from Chelsea. His understanding that there were contacts with both Arsenal and Liverpool, but United's interest was most concrete and was always the priority for the player. As we know, Mason Mount's dad is a big United fan, so I think once United were interested, there was only one place one Mr. Mason Mount was going to go. And it's great to see him back in training now. He's fit. He's had an awful run of luck. Mason Mount is not a player I was especially excited about. I thought we completely overpaid for him, but he's a United player, so I will back him, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. God knows we need a little bit more inventiveness, fitness, dynamism, creativity in those forward areas, and not a minute too soon. So happy to see Mason Mount back, and hopefully can make a bit of an impact in the team for the run in towards the end of the season. And finally, we do have, let's get this little notification off our screens, and good interesting article here on the Daily Mirror regarding to John Murtough and some United execs going over to speak with clubs in Spain regarding summer transfer business. So my my kind of 2 cents on this is I would say clubs are meeting to go, right, which players do you want? Because smaller clubs revel and relish larger clubs swinging the axe at each other and adding 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million onto the price of players. And the only people that win are the selling clubs, and all the big clubs will eventually lose and pay way over the odds. So I wouldn't be surprised if these clubs get together and say, listen, who are we interested in? If you back off this one, we'll back off that one. You're going to save yourself 20 million. And I think if there's a little bit more cohesion and cooperation among big clubs with the targets that they're going after, they're going to save themselves a lot of money and be able to approach the market. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones that inject the huge transfer fees. And if there was a little bit more coordination and cooperation between those larger clubs, they could all probably save themselves between 50 and 100 million in the summer through overpaying agents, overpaying clubs, etc. So United's football director John Murtough and club's chief negotiator set to meet with officials from Real Madrid ahead of the summer transfer window. And more stuff about Ratcliffe and Ashworth, the usual guff that you see at the start of these. A new report from ESPN has outlined that the duo have met with executives from Atletico Madrid and Barcelona already during their trip, with a further meeting with Real Madrid's top brass penciled in before their return. Murtough and Hargreaves also planning to visit clubs in Italy and Portugal in a bid to put United into the best possible position out of a summer rebuild. So I don't think they're speaking to these clubs about buying players directly from those clubs. I think they're kind of thinking to themselves, listen, we want these guys. Who do you want? Who do you want? We'll back off. You back off. Everyone's a winner. We get the players we kind of want. Let's prioritize them. You win this one. We win that one. And we're all going to walk away from this summer transfer with about 50 million extra in our pockets. Madrid, are they under the same financial pressure as Barcelona? No, but they still have a massive stadium hanging over their head, a big development that's happened there. And that's not cheap. Barcelona are... they're on their arses. They're absolutely broken. They don't want to get pulled into bidding wars either. United need to be mindful of FFP. Atletico don't have the money that they used to have. And don't forget, Madrid were bailed out by the Spanish king over 25 years ago when they basically bankrupted themselves, and they had their ground bought by the Spanish king for 250 million euro to bail them out because they spent like lunatics and it bit them in the ass. So Madrid have not been absolved. I quite clearly remember when Madrid were on their knees and they got bailed out by the royal family. That's the equivalent of United being broke and then the royal family coming in and just buying Carrington for £500 million. So yeah, just a bit of an interesting one there. So it goes on to say that they are going to be meeting with all these officials. So United do have money to spend in the summer, although the amount of business the club will do will hinge on outgoings, which we just mentioned earlier. Intriguingly, Juventus defender Bremer, Gleison Bremer is his name, has emerged as a top target for United as well as Real Madrid. He's got a nice, reasonable buyout clause of about 43 million and about 50 million euro. So we've been linked with him pretty much all summer. And I think the top targets are Bremer and Jared Branthwaite, but Antonio Silva's also in there as well, who I'd like to see. Goncalo Inacio from Sporting Lisbon, Scalvini from Atalanta, and a whole host of other centre halves elsewhere. Obviously, there's Jean-Claire Todibo from Nice as well. So who United will get, I personally think we're going to get about at least 3 defenders of varying ages, experience and price tags. But we're going to have a lot of outgoings in that position between Lindelof, Maguire, Johnny Evans, Varane. The only one that I think is really going to be worth keeping is going to be Lisandro Martinez, and everyone else I think can be up for being sold. And there's a picture of the man himself. That's Bremer. And so Chelsea, Tottenham, everyone is kind of interested in this guy. But it goes on to say as well, Greenwood is one player expected to be moved on. I think other players, Sancho, Antony, Casemiro, Wan-Bissaka, all players that I think we're fairly aware of as well. So that is it for the main stories today. Now, as always, thank you very, very much for joining me. And if you did like the content, do not forget to hit like and subscribe and hit that notification button. And as always, I will see you on the next one.